Well, this is the last day of the year, I dare say again, but it doesn't stop any action from going on all over the place. What kind of year has it been in the light of the promises the federal government in particular made when they were asking for us to give them the job of running the country? Well, this is where we are, and we'd like to take a look at the state of the polity. And two gentlemen join us this morning. Richard Mnenga is the board member representing North Central on the board of the Universal Basic Education Commission. He's an APC chieftain and former National Organizing Secretary of the CPC. He joins us from Benue State. Thank you very, very much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Yes, and we also have Chukwudumebi Nwaokobia, who is convener Country First Movement. Thank you so much for
my profound pleasure to be here.
All right, so let's begin with you here with us in the studio. If we look at the state of the polity, especially in the light of the promises of the federal government, the government at the center, to fight corruption, to improve the economy, and to, I forgot the third one right now. What would you say has been what would you call the scorecard of the government this year?
First, let me help you with the third one. Yeah, to fight corruption, to improve national security, and job creation, if you like. Interestingly, I'm here with all sense of respect and commitment to nation, with tears in my eyes. Tears in my eyes because all we have are platitudes, promises, blame games, if you like, encouragements, nice words from government, but scarcely entrenched in performance and delivery of service. I say this advisedly. 2020, beyond the global pandemic, which some have referred to in our climb as pandemic, beyond the debate and the reportage, is the fact that consistently we have had a government that is unable to accept that it has failed in the area of security. We have a government that is unable to accept that it has failed in the fight against corruption. As you and I talk, you know that the anti-corruption czar has been investigated. And that was the same anti-corruption czar that the National Assembly under Bukola Saraki said was less than proper. But this government said, oh, it was Magu. It must be Magu. And Magu remained in acting capacity for almost 4 years against due process. But I think that the time has come for all those who truly care about our country to be dispassionate and to call a spade by its name. Tragically in our country, as you and I talk, I think that the time to remove from partisan obscurantism, partisan disposition, and partisan assessment of every issue of state is now. Because whether you like it or not, even the president's home state is traumatized.
Well, there's something that you said now about, all those indices, fighting insurgency or insecurity, fighting corruption, and stabilizing the economy. If you look on the front pages of and this has built up over the past 2 days or thereabout, there is that ranking of the IMF that says Nigeria is among the top 25 economies in the world. So definitely, as a matter of fact, we're the top economy in Nigeria.
2015, when I was the DG of Change Ambassadors of Nigeria, one of the agencies or the organs that brought Mr. President to power, Nigeria was in a better ranking. Nigeria was the fastest growing economy in Africa. And so I am not here to assess the performance of the government that we vilified and got out of office. I'm here to assess the present government. And what I say without equivocation is the fact that the promises we made Nigerians have not been actualized or fulfilled by this administration. And I say this clearly, without an ounce of doubt, that when we made promises about the Buhari's administration's going to fight corruption, we were persuasive, were profuse, were effusive, if you like. We told Nigerians that it was not going to be business as usual. Okay. But as you and I talk, you know what it is. Then beyond that, the fight against the insurgents in the Northeast, the fight against the bandits, the fight against conflict and crisis in the North Central, the fight against marauding herdsmen who have turned our country into a battleground, if you like, and who have stained our geography with blood, is less than effective. Okay. And we showed to Nigerians a president who was a retired military officer who will deal with these issues. And tragically and unfortunately, that is why so many of my colleagues who were with us in 2014, 2015 on the other side have made public apologies. But I have said repeatedly that for me it's beyond the apologies. It's about pushing the present government to do what is proper, okay, right and right.
Let's see from this other side, just as I said, you know, what the assessment will be. Mr. Mnenga, so this is one opinion coming from, you know, our guest in the studio here, and it would seem like quite a number of people will agree with him. How would you respond?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity once again. But I disagree with him on the issue of corruption, because the president has done much about corruption. As we speak, there are some government officials and former governors who are serving their jail terms. They are all in detention for one corrupt case or the other. So if the president, this has never happened in the past. If some people are locked for numerous years for the crimes they have committed, and you say the president has failed in fighting corruption, I think you are not fair. So I will agree with him on the other side of the story. In terms of security, we are faced with numerous challenges. Look at what happened the day the president went to his country home in Daura. Some people were kidnapped. Some students were kidnapped. And the story is everywhere in the country. And we call the president to be proactive, to do more than he is doing. So I agree with my brother that in terms of the security challenges we are having, the president has a lot to do, more than he is doing. But on the other side, the president has done a lot. I know Mnenga is currently facing some challenges. He ran to Niger and he was brought back. So I think in that aspect, he's trying, but still let him do more. That's my take.
About that security ambit, given that it is one of the major, one-third of the promise that the president and his party, your party, made when coming into power, it would seem like, okay, so why should you remain in office? I mean, some people would say, why should you remain in office if you cannot even fulfill one-third of the promise that you made Nigerians? You know that so many people have been calling for the government to resign if they can't secure Nigerians, being the primary responsibility of government.
So if you resign from office, how can you do what you promised doing to Nigerians? You told Nigerians that if you come, you fight corruption, you end the security challenges we're having in the country. So if you resign, you will have the opportunity to do all these things. So I don't buy the idea of calling on the president to resign because he has not done what he promised. We have the National Assembly that are responsible for calling the president to order. I think if the president has gone wrong, if he has broken his electoral promises, there are many ways we can go about it. But calling on him to resign, I think it's not the best. But actually, many things are not going well. I must admit that. And it is the duty of the president, as the chief security officer of the federation, to come in, as my brother rightly said. But I think resignation is not the solution to that. What makes you feel that if you resign, the next person will do what he has been able to do? I think it's just for us to keep on pressurizing, let him do what he's supposed to do. that it is not being done. That's
Would
what
say, don't you think, Mr. Mnenga, that some would say that it is an indictment of the president that while he is in the same state, less than 3 hours drive from where he was at the time, an abduction took place of more than 300 young Nigerians? Some would say, from an intelligence perspective, they ought to be aware and they ought to have staved off that possibility in the first place. Some would say it's an indictment on the president himself and his government. What would you say to them?
it is. It is. That is what we are saying, that we should be proactive to solve the challenges. You see, on the issue of corruption, he did well and I commended him. But it's an indictment. That is why we are saying that he should do everything possible. Because I know when we were campaigning in 2003, 2007, 2011, 2015, and 19, all he was promising Nigerians was to resolve the security challenges we are faced. So that is why we are saying he should do more than he's doing so that it will be brought to an end. And I still repeat that resignation is not the solution. We are Nigerians. All the people who are doing these things are Nigerians. Let him broaden the scope. Let him do whatever is possible to bring this to an end. I think that's the best way to go about it.
Then you also know, Mr. Mnenga, that to fight the business of security is the business of everyone, as they say, but then the over-centralization of all security apparatus, especially the military and the police, virtually all of the security apparatus under the federal government is quite something. Wouldn't you, one would have expected that because the government wants to fight insecurity, and the federal government cannot do it alone, the laws could have been arranged or adjusted in a way to bring in all other stakeholders, especially the state governments.
That is why I say that he should broaden the scope. If I say he should broaden the scope, that means he should adapt all these things you have said. He should carry all the stakeholders around. In this country, we have DPOs in all the local governments. The security and civil defense, they have offices, the DSS, they have offices in all the local governments of the federation. So I think if we are serious about these things, let the president broaden his scope. Let everybody come on board. Let everybody be involved so as to find a lasting solution to this. We are Nigerians. We are Nigerians. Let the president, what has been doing that has not been working, let's use a new approach so that this thing will be brought to an end.
Well, Mr. Nwaokobia, we pretty much scold the federal government, if I can use that word most of the time when we talk about insecurity. But then there are other federating units. There are the local governments, there are the state governments, but talking about the state governors who themselves have a stake. The same constitution gives them the responsibility of ensuring that they secure the people who live within their domains. One would ask the question again as well, what are they doing?
No, I have a prick on my conscience when people talk about the federating units. We have a unipolar security structure. We have a monstrous and meddlesome center where the IG of police can say, to hell with the governor of Lagos State, where the IG of police can say, I don't want to listen to the governor of my home state of Delta or Kowa, where the IG of police can say, I don't want to talk with Nwike, the governor of River State, where he can say that I don't want to talk to the governor of Niger State, Sani Bello. And that's what we have. That is why repeatedly we have said that the party in power should live true to what is said on paper. In 2014, 2015, we told the Nigerian people that we're going to restructure the Nigerian enterprise, that we're going to ensure true fiscal federalism, that we're going to devolve power and have state police. And interestingly, the Vice President of the Federal Republic, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has said that much, that it's time that we have to do an overhaul of the Nigerian enterprise such that we'll have state police to ensure that we have effective security architecture, if you like, a policing network that will do well for our country. But let me say this, that importantly, too many people in the ruling party, and that's why I'm impressed with my brother on the other side, who has consistently said that he will not praise the government on national security. He will not call a spade by another name. That this government must live true to what is said on paper, that it's going to protect the Nigerian people. And don't forget that the Constitution says that the primary responsibility of government is the protection of lives and property.
And that government doesn't talk only about the federal government.
No, what we have is a constitution that makes the federal government a leviathan. What we have is a constitution that makes the federal government a behemoth. What we have is a constitution that makes the federal government almighty. And you don't blame the constituent tiers or units of government. That's the local government and the state government. You don't blame them.
But they have a responsibility as well.
The state governor cannot give an instruction. Let's correct this impression.
But the state governor
cannot give an instruction to the Commissioner of Police.
But the state governor is a member of the National Security Council.
He's a member of a council
and they
of state.
Also supposed...
He's a member of a council of state. But if you're a nominal member, you can't give proactive and you can't give direct instructions to the IG or to the Commissioner of Police in your domain. Let's stop calling a spade by another name. I think that the time has come for us to join what? I listened to your paper review, your newspaper review, where some of the national agencies, some of the groupings, you have the RLY, you have the PANDEF and several other groups, are saying that the time has come for us to remodel the Nigerian enterprise. The way to go is simply this. If we truly care about our country, we must call our dear president, who by every essence, and that's why I have a certain wonderment. He was with us in PRONACO. I don't know whether you remember what PRONACO stood for, the Pro-National Conference Organizations. He was with us. And he did sing a common song with us. We talked about the need to remodel the Nigerian enterprise to make this dysfunctional enterprise effective, effectual, and efficient. Tragically, now that our dear president is in power, he has left that preachment unattended. And that's my pain. When in 2014-2015, I headed the Change Ambassadors of Nigeria and helped bring this government into place, I did immediately after insist that we have to walk the way of restructuring of this enterprise. Unfortunately, some of our leaders, out of political correctness, left it unattended. In 2017, I left the party. And so many people said it was because he didn't get an appointment. But it is about our nation. I care about my children. I care about your children. I care about posterity. And I think that the time has come for us to think about, just like the question you asked my brother on the other side, 3 hours into our dear president arriving in his home state of Katsina, the Kankara abduction happened. No fear, no worries, no wonderment. Oh, come on. I think that there's a problem with our nation that we must address as a people. And I do sincerely want to say that those who are close to our dear president must begin to tell him the truth. Call a spade by his name. You made a promise to the Nigerian people that you will protect the Nigerian enterprise, that you will defend lives and properties. Sir, we haven't done well enough.
Okay.
And the time for us to heed the admonition of the National Assembly, which is simply saying, if your service chiefs are not doing right, ask them to go.
Well,
don't forget. No, please let me chisel this home. Don't forget that in Chile, in a period of about 5 weeks, almost 5 heads of state resigned because the primacy of protection of life and property, the dignity of the nation, and the authority of state should take preeminence over personal interest. I think that the time has come for us to ask our dear president to leave Nigeria with a legacy. If he can't protect us, he can humbly resign.
But you know, one of the things a number of people will say that each time people call for the removal or the change of the service chiefs, the question some other people are asking is, it is not only the military that is supposed to be in charge of policing the country, so to speak? I mean, because pretty much what we are asking is that the military should come and perform the functions of the police. There is the police, there is the the NDLEA, there is the customs, there's the immigration, there's NSCDC, and a good number of other security agencies in government. So if those ones are not doing their jobs, we seem to be giving too much attention to just one.
I cannot but agree with you. When we're talking about the security architecture, we're talking about the service chiefs and indeed the order, if you like, paramilitary agencies. We're talking about the IG of the police. We're talking about the Civil Defense Corps. We're talking about the Road Safety Commission. We're talking about everything that affects our security as a nation. But let me say clearly that there is a certain love that exists between our president and his service chiefs that bemuses and befuddles me. There is a certain insistence on retaining the service chiefs that leaves me with some kind of wonderment. And I ask, what does the life of an Usman in Karunamuda, and how much does it matter to our dear president? How does the life of a Kene in my hometown of Ibuzo matter to our dear president? And how does the life of a Kemi in Abeokuta, or perhaps the boy, the tanker in the Middle Belt, how does it matter to him? I think that the time has come for us to, like I said, call a spade by its name.
Okay.
We must insist on responsible and responsive leadership. And we must insist on those who should pretend our country and those who are effusively and profusely dedicated to their party, partisan obscurantism, the APC, to tell our dear president that beyond partisanship, the security of the Nigerian people should be of primacy. Okay. And we must aggregate at that parlor, or if you like, congregate at that parlor, where we call every parlor's tendencies in leadership an anathema. We must say to our dear president, protect the man in the Northeast. Protect the man in the North Central. Protect the man in the Northwest. Protect the man in the Southeast. Protect the man in the South-South. And indeed, protect the man in the Southwest.
Well, Mr. Nwaokobia, as well as Mr. Mnenga, will be taking a break, right now. But again, I would suggest that we take a look at leadership in a broad sense, not in a myopic sense, because I think when we give too much attention to one segment of government, one level of government, and leave others, we're pretty much saying they're doing okay.
The presidency controls just about
he does not control the state governments.
The presidency controls just about.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. Let's take a break.
List.
When we come back from this break, we'll take it up from there. Just stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Mr. Mnenga, I don't know if you had plans to react to some of the things that Mr. Nwaokobia has said, but one major thing that your party promised Nigerians before coming into power and repeated in the build-up to this second term is restructuring. And one wonders what would be the reason why that is still something futuristic and not something that we have even begun to talk about yet.
Well, before I speak for that, you see, security of the state is everybody's business. It's not just the duty of the government. So, security has no political affiliation, whether you're in PDP, you're in APC, or whichever party. It's our collective responsibility. And as a matter of fact, the challenges are numerous. The president needs to do more on that. You see, when you talk of restructuring, in states, it is said that the governors are the chief security officers. But the commissioner of police in states are not answerable to governors. They take their orders from the IG. I think when you talk of restructuring, I think these are the kind of things we should look into. Because as a governor of a state, as I earlier said, you are
Yeah,
called
the question then is, why hasn't that conversation about restructuring started yet? We're just having pockets of people indicating it's time, but the APC, as you know, from the center, has not really come out to say, okay, let's do it.
Well, I'm sure it will surely come. I'm sure it will surely come. But you see, the way I look at it, I think the security challenges have outweighed everything. And look, this year started with the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm sure it has reduced a lot of things that are supposed to have been done. But I'm sure the APC promised restructuring. And I'm very optimistic that something will be done about it. You see, the challenges are many. But as you are aware, and my brother in the studio there is fully aware too, that these things cannot be done overnight. But we all agree that all is not well. All is not well, and we need the president to do a lot.
One other thing that the number of people would consider important, of course, is the poverty figures that seems to be on the rise. Of course, exacerbated largely by COVID-19 this year. And of course, all of the things that have happened, especially in the light of COVID-19, has only made things worse, so to speak. So one is wondering what your party at the center and, of course, in all of the states themselves are doing to reduce the poverty figures from what the president himself said, that he wants us to plan out a way of reducing the poverty figures by 100 million over the next 10 years.
If you see most of the policies that the president has implemented, like the social investment program and the public works, which I think 1,000 names were to be given from each local government. These are very good ways of reducing poverty, because if the monies reach the targeted people, poverty will be reduced. The only thing is that in most cases, when this money go there, they are given to people who are already from privileged homes. So the social investment program, if it continues, as you rightly said, the COVID-19 brought a lot of things to stoppage. But if these policies that are implemented by the president, if they were implemented, I think he's towing that line of reducing poverty.
Nwaokobia, you want to respond to that? He's talking about reducing the poverty figures, and as far as he's concerned, the social investment program is doing a big job of reducing the poverty figures in Nigeria.
Let me say clearly that every so often we hear about the social investment programs. I ask myself, and so many other Nigerians will ask, are we dealing with angels, spirits, or the invisibles? Are we dealing with issues that are non-existent? Are we dealing with children who are at home? Because we did see at the beginning of the attention and the federal government relief or respite, if you like, to the COVID situation. While schools were not in session, we saw figures about billions spent on schools, on feeding children who are in school. And so you ask yourself, beyond the platitudes, I think that I want a government that lives true to what it says on paper. I say clearly without equivocation that I was one of those who believed that what we have today will make lives better than what we had in 2014, 2015. I was one of those who believed without equivocation that our dear president would truly attend to the lives of the poor. I was one of those who believed without equivocation that our dear president truly cares about the poor. And unfortunately, I don't know who took away governance and government from our dear president. And that is why, as I talk to you, I do want to say, without any sense of doubt, that I still care about the legacy of President Muhammadu Buhari. And that is why I would say, if I were his son, I will ask him, Papa, you have done so well. You've done your best. If things aren't working, if you aren't ensuring that there is security in the Northeast, if you haven't decimated the Boko Haram, if you haven't improved the economy and created jobs, Baba, resign and go back to Daura and keep what is left of your legacy. One of the added points to your legacy is the fact that when you get back home, Nigerians will say that because those who were with you in government did not cooperate, you decided to leave government. And so it becomes an example in our historicity of a president who resigned. I think that it is not too much to ask of our dear president. If he were my father, and I swear before God and man, I will ask him to go home. Because whether you like it or not, every day Nigerians are beginning to ask fundamental questions. You can't protect the Nigerian people. The value of the naira against the dollar and against the pound and the euro is gone crazy. As you and I talk, the economy is gone kaput. As you and I talk, your effort at ensuring that you grow the economy through closing the borders, it hasn't yielded results. So everything seems to have been sabotaged by those within you, within your government. So if it isn't working, go home. I think that it is not too much to ask of our dear president. I would want my father, if I were the son of the president, to go back to Daura with some legacy. But consistently, whether you like it or not, those who sing his praise in the APC, consistently, whether you like it or not, partisan or creantist, are bent on messing up the figures and telling us that things are working when visibly before us they are not. I said clearly, and that was what I said a few minutes ago, that in 2014, 2015, the figures were better. And when I look at the fact that I profusely and effusively worked against the Jonathan presidency, believing that the Buhari presidency would be better, I look back and I ask myself, why did you do all that?
Are you saying that this government, that the previous government was better for Nigerians?
Economically, how much did you buy a bag of rice? How much is a liter of fuel? What are the global imperatives? And when you talk about the failure of global economies, what it naturally does is it brings respite to the people, to the poor. And if you like, the poorest of the poor, like government will say. But unfortunately, even the poorest of the poor are left in penury. And those who
you know that the NSE, Nigeria Stock Exchange, has been ranked world's best performing stock markets.
Who are those in the stock exchange? Who are those in the stock market? Let's call it.
It's the economy. You're talking about
those who are in the middle ladder, in the middle scale, the few in the middle scale of the economy and the rich. We're talking about a system that affects the poorest of the poor. We're talking about a system that grows from bottom up. We're talking about a system that takes into mind what affects the poor in the society. And I say without equivocation, there are statistics that says, oh, this part of governance is good. This part of governance is good. But fundamentally, your security and my security is of primacy. Fundamentally, how the economy affects the poorest of the poor is of primacy. Fundamentally, how the system grows in terms of your brother and my brother who were at home for about 10 months on account of ASU strike, whereas the government paid about 100 billion, allegedly, to Mietiala, but could not pay 70 billion to ASU. It's a gamut of contradictions that we must address as a people. I think that the time has come for us to ask our dear president, if you can't contend with the realities of leadership as it obtains today, go home.
Well, Mr. Mnenga, you want to respond to that very quickly?
Yes. You see, I don't agree with Nigerians calling on the president to resign. These are political. You can't say the president should resign because he has not done this, he has not done that. These are political statements. I don't believe in that. It's agreed. We are aware that things are not working well. Things are not working well. It is our responsibility to tell the president the truth. Whether you're in APC, you're in PDP, or you're whichever party, and that is what we're doing. We're telling him that the security challenges in this country are too many that he should do something about it. So I don't think telling the president to resign and go back to Dara will solve the problem.
Mr. Mnenga, you know, if you recruited someone, I mean, this is just talking hypothetically. If you recruited someone and the person is not performing the job for which you recruited the person, you have the option of saying that the person should improve or go. And a number of people have been saying, look, just what you're saying, that a lot needs to be done. Even the president himself is saying a lot of things needs to be done. So if the person you employ to do a job is not doing the job as you expect to the person to do the job, what are your options?
That is why a lot of Nigerians are saying that the service chiefs should be sacked, because their continued stay there is not helping matters. That's why many people are saying that. And I think time has come that I will also add my voice to that. If the sack of the service chiefs will bring a solution to that, then let's do it. Let's do it. But I still believe that telling the president to resign and go back to Barrow will solve the problem. You say this is an APC government, and if the president resigns, the next person to him is still an APC person. So if people are political about it, if you see your party PDP is better, come and do it. If he resigns, is the governor going to hand it over to a PDP person? No. It is the APC that will continue. So I think time has come for Nigerians to come together and air up these things. Let's go.
Oh dear, I was going to throw a question at Mr. Mnenga. I hope we'll be able to get him back, because, you know, a very good number of people in Nigeria are pretty much asking, you know, I don't know whether to call it a vote of no confidence on the president right now, because Chief Anyoko is saying that the current state of the nation is worrisome. The Sultan of Sokoto is talking about the north being the most dangerous place to live. You, of course, have seen the hoopla that's resulted from the statement ascribed to Father Kuka. And a very, very good number of people, the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, have also come out to say a thing or two. Ango Abdullahi is also talking about that. Look, we should restructure Nigeria and the rest of that. Well, so, Mr. Mnenga, a good number of people have been talking about the need for us to look at things differently. On the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning, Chief Anyoko is saying that the current state of the polity is worrisome. You know what Father Kuka has spoken about and the hoopla that's resulted from that. The statement ascribed to the Sultan of Sokoto about the north being a very, very dangerous place to live. And so many other people, the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, also saying a thing or two about the state of Nigeria at this time. If we look at all of these issues in just one fell swoop, is the APC as concerned as people are, or do you think that things are going well enough and government is doing their best and no other government could do it better?
You see, people who are criticizing the president, most of them are APC. As I earlier said, it's not an APC or PDP government. Let's say, for example, every president do have his weaknesses. So if you say a president should be resigning on what he has said to do, that means you'll be having presidents to be resigning frequently, because during Obasanjo's time, he did some things that were not good. During Yar'Adua's time, it was the same. During Jonathan's time, it was the same. So if you say that presidents should be resigning at every single thing they have failed to do, then that means that every time you have presidents resigning frequently, and that is not the best. That is the point I'm trying to make.
All right, so, but then it still doesn't answer the question of whether or not a lot more could have been done to make the lives of Nigerians better across all sectors: education, health, even politics.
It's a process. That is what I've been telling you, that even we APC members were calling on the president, if there is any approach has been using that has not been working, let him use a new approach to make sure that things work better. It has nothing to do with APC or PDP. We are talking as Nigerians, because the numerous challenges we are facing in this country. PDP is they have been affected. APC have been affected. It has nothing to do with political party, but it's a process. It's a process. That is why we are calling on the president that the approaches of the past, new ideas will be brought on board. new agents brought on board so that things will go well?
Well, one would find it very difficult, Mr. Nwaokobia, to talk about the year 2020, which is being called the year of the pandemic, without talking about EndSARS and the protests that resulted as an aftermath of that, and so many other things, all because, you know, security of lives and property, you know, was pretty much at stake. The people themselves had to literally take it upon themselves to say, no, enough of this. The build-up to the EndSARS had taken years. There had been signatures collected to say, look, this ought not to continue. The police brutality is something that we can't take anymore. And then it got to the point where we had the EndSARS protest. First of all, of course, a good number of people think it's a very, very powerful statement. But after that, what?
Let me say clearly that the year 2020 may pass for what the Greeks will call annus horribilis, but the EndSARS remains a halcyon moment in 2020. Our young people, young boys and young girls, stood up and spoke out. And spoke out loudly about how they want their nation governed, how they want decorum, decency, and respect with respect to policing. And they did it well. I think that our young people deserve every commendation and kudos for not only teaching the world an expression in passive resistance. For about 12 days, they consistently told the world that we can make it right and we can do it peacefully. We can ask for justice, we can ask for decorum, we can ask for decency, and we can do so profoundly and with every sense of decorum. If you ask me, who would you call your man of the year for 2020? Those are young people who, in EndSARS, decided to stop police brutality, brigandage, and banditry. And I want to say that it's a progress, it's an action in progress, is a journey in continuum. And I do sincerely believe that what the young people have done is something we must salute and commend.
Well, while that is there, then the handling of that process, you know, has also come under a lot of scrutiny, especially in this year under review. What would be your assessment of both the activity, the immediate aftermath, and the processes so far?
Now, I want to say that you cannot take away from the positives of that protest. You cannot take away from the positives of that action. And we must continue to salute and celebrate the Nigerian youths for what they did. You cannot walk away from that reality. And let me say clearly that in the years ahead, particularly in 2021, the Nigerian youths will continue to agitate, push for, and work towards making things better. And they will do that so profoundly because don't forget that CNN, the BBC, and several global networks did say that in the 2020 EndSARS protest, the Nigerian youth taught the world an example in progressive and proactive protest. I'll give you a practical instance. Have you forgotten that in the Black Lives Matter protest, in about 120 states in America, there was violence and banditry, there was brigandage and shoplifting. But for 12 days, the Nigerian youths led without doubts a peaceful protest until the 20th of the 10th day of October, when certain agents provoked conflict. I do not want to say agents of states, but certain agents provoked conflict. And when that provocation of conflict happened, there was banditry, brigandage, and that happened on the 13th day. I want to say that what the Nigerian people did, and the Nigerian youth precisely did in the EndSARS process, was to teach not only Africa, but the world a lesson in the beauty of peaceful protest.
Okay. Well,
and let me chisel this home, that those who tried immediately after to criminalize that protest have done nothing but colossal injustice to the Nigerian people.
Well, Mr. Mnenga, your take on that one as well would be, what would it be?
You see, the EndSARS protest was a good one, but unfortunately some problems took it to a different dimension because a lot of public property were destroyed and many people lost their lives. So I think as we enter 2021, if the youth are serious, if the youth are desirous of having their voices heard, they should be careful not to be used by politicians to make them divert anytime they come out to cry for the government to hear. The moment they succumb to pressure from politicians to obtain the good intentions they have of crying to the federal government to be listened to, then the end will be defeated. As we approach 2021, the youth should be fully aware that they have a very big role to play, especially as 2023 approaches. Because you see, protesting against the federal government is a legitimate thing. It is even done in advanced countries where we are learning our democracy from. But the moment you start making it violent, it makes no sense.
But what you have just said now, saying that 2023 is just in view, the question a good number of people are asking is, how friendly are the established political parties to bringing in, welcoming the younger ones to come into politics? Getting into the system for them is a lot of work. Is there a plan that you think, maybe the APC or the established political parties can come up with to say, let's encourage the younger ones to come into government and come up with their ideas?
You see, that is, the youth have to come by themselves, get involved, participate, and be there. You can't sit that you should be called to come. Who are the majority in this country? The youth. Who are the ones that used to rig elections? The youth. Who are the ones that are being sent on errands to go and destroy, do all sort of
saying that the youths are used to rig elections? Did you just say that the youths are used to rig elections?
It's a fact. It's a fact that Is it the elders or is it the elders that have been going to play use to snatch ballot boxes around? No. We have witnessed in so many places, in so many states, where elections have been rigged in the past. And who are those that have been?
Oh dear. Well, anyway, just before we let it go, Mr. Nwaokobia, he's talking about bringing youth, that youth should find it easy to go into politics themselves. Where you stand, how easy is that?
No, it's an idea whose time has come. From the efforts of the Nigerian youth in the Not Too Young to Run movement and the bill that came into law, to the fact that in the EndSARS process, the Nigerian people, the Nigerian youths have said that we can actually fix our country. We know what is wrong with our country and we can govern our country. I think that the time has come for the major political parties and the other parties to understand that the Nigerian youth is not the no-doer. The Nigerian youth is not the garrulous individual. The Nigerian youth is an opinionated individual who believes that his country can work and this country can be fixed. And for the good of the other parties, I think that the time to welcome the youths into the leadership structure of our political parties is now. I am confident that if the parties open the doors, I'm confident that if the youths decide to involve and engage politically, that our journey away from poverty, disease, and despondency to promise shall have begun. I am confident that together with the Nigerian youth, who showed wonderful and profound promise in the EndSARS protests and in presenting issues fundamentally before the Nigerian space, that if we aggregate, if we work and congregate with the Nigerian youths, we can make this country better again. My advice as we talk, as the year 2020 closes, as that annus that is defined as horribilis goes away, as 2021 beacons, that the political operators and actors must understand that together with the young people, we can build a new nation.
Well, I will not let you go just yet on that young people ambit, because maybe you have some scopes, that you some bullet points, some leads, or some guides you want to give them to how they can get in safely and effectively. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us, Mr. Nwaokobia. You know, we were talking about the youths and all of that. And one of the things that comes to mind is the build-up to the Fourth Republic. I remember that in the wake of the botched Third Republic, there was a lot of hoopla. Just the same way, you know, the EndSARS thing started spontaneously, such that people were saying, no, we're not going to take this, we don't want this, and then before you know what is happening, of course, all of that, you know, unrest and dissatisfaction by, you know, people like you and so many other Nigerians, your generation, better way to put it, you know, ended up in what we have now. And so people are wondering, how do we ensure that the young people, who many people applauded, still applaud for an amazing job with the EndSARS, you know, protests and all, how do we ensure that that crisis is not wasted, as leadership experts say?
Let me say clearly that the regrets that we had in 1999, when we so deeply doubted the Absalom Abubakar transition, which of course led to those who did not struggle against military rule, those who did not suffer the tragedies that we suffered under Abacha to take over the democratic space, does not happen again. I think that the time has come for the young people who showed particular and profound promise, who showed fabulous promise in the EndSARS protest, to begin to engage from the grassroots, the state level and national level in politics. I know that sizably, the society fares badly if good men refuse to get involved in politics. If you truly believe that you can contribute to moving this country forward, go get involved at any level politically and begin to preach the message. Beyond the protest at Lekki, beyond the protest at Laosa and across the country, the time has come for us to take our destinies in our hands and chart a course for our dear country. And I believe profusely that the Nigerian youths can do that. It was that passion in 2011, when I was just about 40, that made me run for presidency. Until 2011, I was the youngest to have run for the office of president democratically. And what I told the Nigerian youth when I was running in 2011 was that we can move this country forward because we are the immediate victims of the failure of state. And 1,001 young people are out there, out of school, no jobs. They are out there traumatized and oppressed by leadership at different levels. And we are there complaining. I think that the time has come for us in what they did, taking from what they did in the EndSARS protest to angle, challenge, and work for political office. We must begin to say never ever again and challenge the old, not necessarily dismissing the old, challenge the old for the soul of our nation. Okay. We can make this country great again.
Well, Mr. Mnenga, one of the things a number of people worry about when it comes to politics in Nigeria, and you know, gratifying to know that both of you are in politics, is that they say politics is dirty. So, and that it's murky. If you don't have money, you can't go into politics and make significant impact. What would you tell them?
That is what I was just saying in my mind. You see, the youth don't have money. Even these political parties don't make their policies in the way that they used to be favored. Let's say, for example, it is normally charged that anybody contesting for elective offices should pay huge sums of money, and most of these youth don't have that money. So these are ways of indirectly keeping them at the back. You know, the youth of this country are like a dog who goes to hunt, who goes to the bush to hunt for an animal. And when the animal is prepared, it's only the bones that are given to eat. So political parties should, in their own way, encourage the youth by reducing the charges for those who are intending to vie for elective offices. I will give myself an example. Like my brother rightly said, they used to come out and participate. They shouldn't wait to be invited. I give myself an example. At a very tender age, I was a member of Campaign for Democracy. And you know what CD did to bring democratic governance in Nigeria. I was a member of Campaign for Democracy at a very tender age. Nobody invited me, but I saw it as a very good platform to say myself. And I joined. Right now, as I'm talking to you, it is my intention to contest for the governorship of Benue State in 2023. I have not waited for anybody to.
Oh, no. Well, not again. Well, it's interesting. At least, both of you seem to be on the same page about this conversation. But then that challenge remains of resources. He's speaking to that. You want to quickly add your voice to that.
No,
about the fact that the younger people that you have said, you're correct. Most of them have no jobs. Consequently, and most of them in business aren't doing so well, business wise. So how do they get involved when it's largely capital intensive?
No, going forward, let me say, and this is a challenge to my younger ones out there, that we cannot, because we do not have so much money, give up our destinies and our hope. We cannot, because we do not have we're not money bags, throw our destinies into the hands of those who consistently haven't shown capacity and competency. I think that the time has come for us to believe that we can. I am profusely confident that if the Nigerian young people organize and join political parties and decide to work together, because the more united we are, the more our ability to turn the cards and make things better for our people. I am not unaware of the fact that the census demograph, that the statistics of the electoral regime, which of course the INEC figures says that the youths, in preponderant number, we control the voters demograph. So what we must begin to do as we close into 2021, 2022, and 2023 is to begin to organize rather than agonize. The time has come for us to begin to think about how we can deliver our country away from the draconic hold of those who apparently do not care about our nation. The time has come for us to mobilize. The time has come for us to campaign, agitate. And the time has come for us to take over the political parties. We can actually, and I'm confident that we can take over the ruling APC, we can take over the ruling PDP, we can take over the other parties because we have the number, we have the strength, we are vivacious, we are opinionated, we are deeply ideological. And I do sincerely believe that together we can redeem our country and take our country away from the jangling discord of poverty, disease, despondency, and deprivation to the amazing place of promise. We can, if we truly believe that we can work together and redeem our country from the clutches of poverty.
Well, Mr. Mnenga, one of the things a number of people will also ask along the same line is that of gender. The gender balance is still an issue, if you understand what I'm talking about. The percentage of women in government, especially the percentage of appointment of women at the federal level, in the ministries, departments, and agencies, it still leaves much to be desired. So a good question then would be, how far so far? I mean, one would have expected that because it's part of the promise to at least increase the numbers at the federal level, it'll give an indication to the states. How do you respond?
Well, I also encourage it. It is all over the world. We have a female president in many countries of the world. So Nigeria should be an exception. I encourage the involvement of more women in government, just as practiced in other parts of the world. There's nothing wrong about it. In Nigeria, there is a popular statement that what a man can do, a woman can do better. So
it's the enabling environment, Mr. Mnenga. It's the enabling environment, you know, where, I mean, you know, men are said to kind of shoulder the women to one side. So if the enabling environment is not there, how easy can it be for the woman who is aspiring?
But women have not been stopped from coming out. Even Sarah Jibril even came out to contest for presidency. Did anybody stop her? Nobody. So nobody has stopped any woman. If you are courageous enough, if you think you have the qualities, if you think you have the qualities to come out for any elective office, go ahead. There is no law or there is no policy in Nigeria that has stopped women from coming out to contest. So
Okay.
it's up to them.
All right, Mr. Mnenga. A number of people will tell you that what you have just said is easier said than done, but we have to thank you very much this morning for being a part of our conversation. Richard Mnenga is a board member representing the North Central at the Universal Basic Education Commission. He's also a chieftain of the PDP, as well as Chukwudumebi Nwaokobia, who is convener of Country First Movement. Thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of our conversation this morning.
Pleasure's mine.
We're back in a moment. Just one more thing. Just stay with us.